welcome to 17 Minutes of Science, our show that explores the world of science and how it affects both the starting academic and the seasoned professional. I am Hannah Houston, and today I am joined by Dr. Chris Hopkins, the CSO here at InVivo Biosystems. Chris pioneered the commercialization of elegans transgenics. As a scientist turned entrepreneur, he now pioneers the application of humanized animal models for discoveries in personalized medicine and natural products. Welcome, Chris. I'm very excited to get to talk to you today.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to participate.
We are very excited to have you. So I am now starting my 17-minute timer, and we will jump right into questions.
Okay.
So to begin, what got you interested in science, and what was the first thing that got you really excited about pursuing this career?
I've sort of had science in the blood. My dad's been a scientist, so it's been sort of ingrained into me from a very early start. But in college is probably about the time when I jumped into a lab and got into the lab called it was Toad Oliveira's lab. And what he worked on was cone snails, and they're highly venomous snails that eat live fish. And so one of the things I did there is I studied the snail toxins, and then I found a way to actually extract the toxins by figuring out how to milk a snail, which is basically how do you take a snail and get its venom out of it. And we published on that, and that's an intriguing story in of itself.
Yeah, fascinating. I did not actually know that you could milk a snail. Learning something new every day, I guess. That was probably an experience.
Yeah. So well, when you ask, how do you milk a snail? Well, so these snails are little cone snails. They send out a thing called a sort of a tongue, but it's a proboscis, and it's a very long thing that looks a little bit like a worm as it snakes out of their mouth. And when they sense a fish, they send this out, and they usually bury it in the sand. And so a fish goes, yum, worm, goes to eat the worm, and then the worm has a little harpoon in it, and it's hollow, and it injects a very potent bolus of neurotoxins into the animal. So it immediately paralyzes it with rigid paralysis. And then the snail goes, sort of bursts out of the sand and pulls back in its tongue, and then engulfs the fish and gets a really nice meal.
Oh my gosh, wow. That is pretty amazing. So you went from
these. What really
these.
sparked me in science. That's what got me going.
It would definitely spark me too. That sounds amazing. So you went from these poisonous snails to C. elegans. How did you make that transition from one model to another?
Oh, right. That was yeah, it's kind of a jump. So that undergraduate work led me to go through a few labs, and then got into graduate school in Boston, working in biochemistry, and then got into a lab in University of Utah doing genetics. And that's where I got into C. elegans and found it a very, very useful model for genetics. It's a very potent, powerful model. And in fact, it got involved in one of the first sort of gene editing techniques was called the MOSCI technique that allows you to introduce DNA at a site-specific locus. And we published that, and then I took that and commercialized that technology and launched a company called Knudra. And once we launched Knudra, we grew that business for a little while, and then found this other company, which we know of very well. At the time, it was called NemaMetrix. We merged together and formed a company that brought the instrumentation and the phenotyping capacity together with the ability to engineer the genome of C. elegans, and created a nice system for creating data packages for clients. And in fact, at the same time, about that time, we were also got into doing zebrafish. So we offer two different alternative animal models, the zebrafish and the C. elegans.
That we do. So can you tell us just a little bit more about starting Knudra? Because you went from, being an academic to founding a company. That's pretty impressive.
Well, right. It is sort of scary to when you're in graduate school going, oh my, what am I going to do with my life? Phenomenon is that as you come out of your either graduate school or postdoc, only 10% of those people make it into an academic position. So what do the other 90% do? Most of them go into academia or do something else. So the do something else aspect was mine. It was like, I think I might have a technology here that, the Mosky technology, and I might go ahead and try and commercialize it. So I decided to do that. And that was scary. But I had my dad as a mentor. So my dad is a biochemist, and he worked as an academic, and then he went into industry, in which I did actually about a year-long stint in industry. But he did a many-year-long stint in industry, and then he started his own company. So I had a role model there. My first role model was my papa, and so if he can do it, I can do it too. And it was a struggle for those first couple of years, very tough going, but we were able to hit stride in a couple of years in and really start cranking away and start making money.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely have the entrepreneurial blood in your veins if your dad experienced that as well. Good to have mentors too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about some experiences in your life that have led you to where you are today?
Yeah, you get these experiences for good or for bad. I mean, once I got out of my postdoc and realized it just didn't have that killer stack of publications, it really forced my hand. I had been dreaming of being an academic in ivory tower, and I really enjoy the process of scientific thinking and scientific study. But now getting into where we are now in our group, we've now got essentially that, but we've got a little bit of profit motive going on. So the pivots that you have to take, the chances that you have to do, they're scary, but they're almost always rewarding. So a wall comes up to you in front of your life, and you start looking sideways, looking around the wall, looking at other ways, and often those other alternative paths can be quite interesting to take.
That is very true, and we're glad you did take that alternative path. Um, so you have touched on this a little bit, but were there any major events in your life that you view as turning points in your career?
Besides the sort of jumping from and going from an academia focus to all right, let's try the entrepreneurship. What another big turning point was when I was working together with an incredible team in Knudra. Went into a merger, and that was a very scary time, and it was a very what does it mean on the other side of a merger? That was quite an adventure to get through that. We had some challenges. From not everybody on our team was aligned with doing the merger, and that was a very tough time. And I struggled hard with that to essentially get everybody on my side on board with the merger, but we did. And that merged entity now is InVivo Biosystems, and now I feel like that's been a winner approach to have taken.
Yeah. We are, so happy that you have continued on with InVivo Biosystems as well. It's such a pleasure to get to work with you every day. So in your view, what are the skills you need to be successful in a startup as a scientist?
We're trained as scientists to be very independent, to drive your own questions, to take the idea and keep chasing it and move forward. But it's actually very sort of insular, very, very kind of self-oriented. Yes, you do a lot of collaborative meetings, and you get to challenge the assumptions you're making and so on. So there is a collaboration. But I would say when it goes to getting out of academia and going to industry, it becomes much, much more oriented towards a team. So learning how to be a good team player has been a challenge, but it's a very important thing, because the level of success you can get from well-oiled mind share is amazing, and that's the one thing that I've sort of really have learned, and has been a big difference to. Still learning the process, but I think it's a very important one to learn how to work well together with a team and hit objectives.
It's funny because that is definitely a theme that has come up in many of these 17 minutes interviews, is just the collaboration that is needed to progress science forward, whether you're an academic or you're in industry, collaboration is definitely key.
Agreed, agreed. Collaboration is a winning approach.
Yes. So your title with us is CSO, but I feel like that doesn't even begin to encompass what you do. You also are very involved in the sales process, and you work closely with many of our customers. What do you enjoy most about working with customers?
Well, as an academic, and you first ask, "Ooh, could I do sales?" It's almost an anathema. It's like, "Ooh," but you know what? Once I go, so when I first, so one of the things I did right after trying entrepreneurship was realized how profoundly ignorant I was, and so I went and got an MBA, and I learned sales techniques. And just all, the whole encompassing how to do a business and grow a business. And the analytics you can do in sales, they're very scientific, A/B testing and so on. And I really like that. I like the fact you can sort of test out your hypotheses in the market with people, like does this message work or does that message work? And so actually, I found it actually surprisingly comfortable place to be. And I'm a fairly outgoing person, so I love talking to new people. And so I say one of the thrills about it is just trying to meet the needs of the customers and trying to understand what they're doing and ask, can we be of help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you really hit the nail on the head there, and that many people at first kind of recoil a bit at the idea of doing sales, but yeah, it's so data driven that it can be very engaging as well.
Yeah, I can
Um,
feed the intellectual plus the emotional, so it's actually quite fun.
it is, yes. So jumping back a little bit to something you alluded to earlier, but I'd love to talk a little bit more about important mentors in your life. So you mentioned your dad, but yeah, if you could just expand a little bit about who were some of the most important mentors to you throughout your life and in your career.
Sure, sure. Well, Dad's been a really important one. Papa encouraged me to do science fairs as a little kid. And in fact, I was able to win the state fair and go on to the international science fair. So I've been a geek through and through my entire life, pretty much. Got into school and got into Toto's lab and had a blast as an undergrad, just being in the lab, basically been given a long leash in most of the positions I've gotten into, and allowed to just explore at will. And that's the inventive side that the aspect of science that I just absolutely love, is just exploring questions. And then, well, graduate school, Dean Tolan was my advisor there, taught me biochemistry, and really that was a very eye-opening area to go down. And then Eric Jorgensen for my postdoc, long postdoc, 7-year postdoc. I definitely like that postdoc, but was able to take a technology out of there and commercialize it. So that's had a lot of mentors in my life that have been and team members. I mean, I consider my co-founder at Knudra is Trisha Brock. She's a mentor for me and a great friend. And many of the team at InVivo Biosystems, just about everybody, but there's a lot of people there, that are have been very inspiring to me.
I count my blessings fairly often that I get to work with such an amazing group of people. So it's always wonderful to hear that other people feel the same way as well.
Yeah, it's been a scary path to take these different turns and go down, but it's almost always rewarding when you either look over your shoulder, you look to the right or look to the left and go, I wonder what's over there.
Yes, asking questions often is definitely key. So we have just a few moments left, and I was wondering if you wanted to end by sharing any advice you would give to someone who may, be in a similar situation you were once in, an academic who isn't quite sure where they want to go, and do they want to do industry or do they want to do academia, and potentially thinking of even starting their own company. What advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, it's a good one. Uh, vision questing is important. It's, asking yourself, where do I want to be 6 months from now? Just trying to ask, all right, well, I can do this and do that. All right, what's the next one? Where I'm going to be 1 year from now? Where I'm going to be 2 years from now? Take it all the way out to 5 years and ask, where would I like to be in 5 years? And then, if you're finding that's an interesting place, I want to be in academia, or I want to be in industry, or I want to have a successful startup, take it back, baby steps. What are my little steps to get there? So vision, trying to just ask, where do you want to be in a few years, and then try and figure out what the steps to get there. I mean, that's a little bit of it's just random walk, but a lot of it is premeditated thought.
No, I think that's a great plan, because you're not going to reach your goals if you don't think about what your goals even are.
Yeah, you got to be time bound. You got to say, I want to be X by Y.
Yes, very true. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today on 17 Minutes of Science. It is a pleasure to get to work with you every day, and to share a little bit more of your story with our audience as well today was a real treat. So thank you for taking the time to sit down with us.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for the honor.
Thank you, Chris. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today to 17 Minutes of Science. We will see you next time. Bye.